Good morning, everyone. Welcome back at LeWeb. My name is Cedric Georgi. I'm the co-founder of Cookening, and working with Loic on the LeWeb program here today, and tomorrow I'll be your host. This morning we have special session, 3 in a row. The idea was to give you a global perspective of what's happening in the world. 3 countries, 3 regions with a lot of innovation. And of course, we're talking a lot about the Silicon Valley on the first stage, but after Silicon Valley, when you think about innovation, the next country that comes up is Israel, the startup nation. So we have a panel called The Next 10 Years from the Startup Nation Perspective that will be moderated by Ayelet Nof, who is the founder and co-CEO of Blonde 2.0, and I will let her introduce her panel.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our panel. As many of you are aware, Israel is known to be the second Silicon Valley of the world. There are more startups per capita in Israel than anywhere else on the planet. In our panel today, we will discuss the next 10 years from the startup nation perspective. We have on our panel 2 of the most innovative and disruptive startups in Israel today, and a top investor. Let me start by introducing our first panelist, Doron from the amazing startup Bytedot. Hi, Doron.
Hi, how are you?
So Bytedot is taking the unlimited capabilities of nature and applying them to a wide range of semiconductor devices. For example, they take 2 molecules of amino acid and let nature create a tiny crystal that is a new type of raw material for display technology. This technology is groundbreaking since it allows nature to take its course in a simple, bioorganic, and cost-effective manner, eliminating the need for environmentally harmful heavy metals and expensive facilities. Some of the devices Bytedot has already demonstrated its effects on include data storage, batteries, image sensors, and displays for smartphones and TVs. Let me continue by introducing you to our second panelist, Yitzi, from the disruptive startup YouMove. Hi, Yitzi. YouMove has created a face and eye tracking technology for any mobile device, no extra hardware needed. With this technology, YouMove brings a new layer of interaction to mobile interfaces and gives devices the power to truly understand the user by analyzing their interest in real time. And finally, we have with us Net. Net is a serial entrepreneur and investor. He's the co-founder and general partner of a new global seed fund, Spark Labs Global Ventures. In the past, Net was Facebook's first head of international business development and mobile business, responsible for growing Facebook internationally. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi.
Let me start with you, Doron. So I've explained to the audience what you do, but we would love to hear more from you about what Bytedot is actually doing.
Okay, so Bytedot is taking amino acids. These are basic elements that we all have in our bodies, created by nature or by God, if you will. And these can be manipulated to have some qualities that are important for our mobile device, such as luminescence, such as energy storage for our batteries, such as improvement of your image sensor, improvement of the memory device. And what's amazing about what we do is we take these biological elements and we introduce them into the semiconductor process, and we improve the device efficiency, and we improve, obviously, the planet. So we're not only thinking about the next 10 years, but we think about the planet for the long term. So these are bioorganic materials, and I want to show today for the first time these elements. These are, as we said, peptides. These are amino acids. This will be the first ever global demonstration of what these peptides can do. So what you see here is these peptides in liquid. And for a mobile display, what we need is an RGB. And what we have created here, you can see, if I can dim the lights a little bit. This is an RGB created from organic material, exists in our bodies or in nature. And the idea is that this can replace cadmium selenide or heavy metals that currently are being used in displays. But it's not only that. Of course, we are also doing memory. We are also doing new type of batteries. So we are changing the way people think about semiconductor, and we are introducing new materials that are organic materials into next generation mobile devices.
So, Doron, as a technology that is inspired by nature, how do you protect it?
So the whole process of how you manipulate these peptides and how you make them do what you have just seen is a process that is proprietary to us. It's based on research that was done at Tel Aviv University for several years. It actually started from seeking cure for the Alzheimer's disease. So this same peptide that was identified as an Alzheimer's disease cause, this is the one that we have isolated, and we have created a tiny crystal. It's called a nanodot. It's a crystal that, in some other elements, we could have gone to get a Nobel Prize on that, but instead of going for a Nobel Prize, we're actually creating a new type of devices. So it is protected with 14 patents that we have submitted.
Yitzi, you do face and eye tracking. So tell us a little bit about what that means and what is the difference between the two.
Okay. Today any device, any mobile device, PCs too, have a front-facing camera. Not a very strong front-facing camera, but they all have a front-facing camera. We use that camera, which is taking a picture of your face and your eyes, and we're taking that image and using it to track the movements, even the most gentle, slightest movements of your face and your eyes, and we use that to interact with the device. So the difference, I'd say, between face and eye, I'd say they complement each other. Face is something that humans are aware of. You're in control of. You can move your face. You can decide where you want to move your face. You're in full control over it. So it's a great way to interact with the device, not instead of touch, but actually on top of it. And I'll show a demo maybe in a minute. And you'll see how you can also combine the two together, where you can use touch, but just like in the real world, we use our hands, we use our voice, we also use our face and our eyes to interact. Same thing we do here. It adds another layer of interaction. With eyes, the eyes you're less in control of. You can tell someone to look to here, but if something attracts him over there, he'll be jumping all around the place. So it's not a good way to interact, but what's amazing about the eyes is a window. They say eyes are a window to the soul. The eyes open up a window into understanding the user. If you see what the user's looking at, you can know so much about, and you can understand so much about the user, and you can actually create experiences that understand and are customized for the user. It goes actually more than that. With the eyes, you can actually know not only by what they're looking at, but also by the type of movements they're doing, if a user is engaged in what he's watching or not. Imagine watching a video and knowing if the user at this point is getting bored, it's interesting to him, it's boring to him. That's another thing you can get from the eyes. And when you go to the medical world, it goes on and on from there. It really opens up a whole new world to understanding, a deeper understanding of the user.
So you can basically serve content based on a person's eyes and know whether some content is interesting to them, not interesting to them.
Exactly. Also to understand, and also another way to interact. Maybe I'll show a demo now. Hear me? Yeah. Okay. We'll start with a game. This is a 3D game where the user flies through a city. But I'll show you first something else. You see at the beginning, just to show you the accuracy of the control. You see I can actually move, I can move this ball around accurately, just like a cursor. And look at the movements of my face. They're gentle. Okay, I can do it quickly, can do it slowly. And now I start the game and actually fly through. I look down, I look up. You can actually create very powerful experiences where actually get a real feel of flying through the city. Another classic example, and maybe a good example of combining the different types of, and again, by the way, just so you see, this is a regular, it's actually an old iPad, an iPad 2. How old is that already? 3 years, what are we talking about? And that's all it needs. This actually works on an, we have games that work on an iPod Touch. We really went for the lowest common denominator, the camera that exists in any single device, and that's what we used to create, that's what we used to create the experience. Here, we took a classic first-person shooter. It's just a simple demo. Anybody who plays a first-person shooter knows the challenge of, you have one finger that you're using to tap, to shoot, then you have another one to move your feet, then another to sort of aim, and it becomes, if you're not a heavy gamer, it becomes very uncomfortable. Here we, again, connect it to the natural way of doing things. We have a joystick, which controls, moving my feet. And then I can shoot, doing that. And then I can aim just based on where I face. So I just look around the room, okay? I can aim, shoot a missile. And then I can combine the two. I can walk around just based on where I look. The experience is, as you can imagine, much more immersive. Even take a humming missile and follow it through. So, that's just it.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So do you believe we're going to stop using touch in the future? To stop using touch in the future?
So no, not at all. I actually think that, as I was saying before, they complement each other. And a great example is, think of the computer before we had a mouse. Came in the mouse, it didn't replace the keyboard. It actually added another level on top of the keyboard. So now we have a keyboard, and now we have a graphical interface, which we can use the touch. It's the same thing. You have the touch, you have great things, touch is great. We're just taking that to another level. And the eyes are taking that same thing to an even deeper level. Not only my movements, not only my intentional movements that I'm in control of, but also understanding, even at a deeper level, sometimes things I don't even realize that I'm telling the device.
So Net, you've seen these two amazing startups. Why do you think that Israel is such a hub for these great ideas? What is it about Israel that makes it, so the climate? So
Sure. I think a lot of things has been written about the startup nation and the unique climate about Israel, so I don't think I'm going to bring anything new here. But obviously combination of Israel being an immigrant country with people from all over the world, all kind of cultures coming together, becoming like a melting pot. That has been shown in the past that if you look, for instance, in California, why Silicon Valley, actually most engineers there and most people working in innovative companies actually have immigrant backgrounds. And so obviously Israel is at the forefront. We are an immigrant country from day one. I also think, obviously, the army has a very important forming factor. Guys being together in technology units, learning at the forefront of different technology developments, becoming domain experts on whether it could be security, video decoding, location, all kind of different technologies. But I think what really sets us up as entrepreneurs is really, serving together in a unit for three years together, then doing repeated military service. It creates like an amazing boot camp for entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurial spirit, where you have to overcome any obstacle. Failure is not an option. If you don't get in through the front door, you find a window back out. And I think that's a perfect kind of forming for an entrepreneur, which helps us to think that we can overcome anything. We'll find a solution, and it kind of forms the spirit of Israeli entrepreneurship.
Doron, do you agree?
I absolutely agree. I also think the ties to the academic world is very strong. So the transition for an industrial application coming out of a university is something that is more seamless in Israel than I think in other places. Many of the professors are engaged in the industry and are trying to commercialize their ideas, and we are just one example of how that happened.
So tell us more about how you came up with the idea for StoreDot.
So, as I mentioned, we were looking for a cure for the Alzheimer's disease, and this was a research that was published like 5 years ago at Tel Aviv University, and then identified this specific element of amino acids. It's called FF, that is part of the cause for a fibril in our brain that damages it and creates the Alzheimer's disease. So the ability to isolate it and then create some crystal that has very interesting properties out of that. This is what intrigued us. So we came up with this process of how you can manipulate and chemically synthesize these peptides to the benefit of semiconductor devices. We started with a memory device coming out of an Alzheimer peptide. This was like an interesting transition. Philosophically, we said, okay, maybe we can create a memory. And we did demonstrate a memory chip that instead of a floating gate, whoever is familiar with flash memory, it has a layer of these nanodots, these nanocrystals. So you hold the charge in those crystals. We then continued and made an image sensor prototype and a display prototype and a next generation battery, which is a big deal for all our investors, that we can basically charge a smartphone in 30 seconds.
Wow. Charging a smartphone in 30 seconds. I think we can all enjoy that. Yitzi, how did you come up with your idea for YouMove?
So back 3.5 years ago, I think it was, we were dealing with apps with the mobile world. We were trying at that time to sort of bring what was then in the iPhone, the app world that was developing, trying to bring it to the mass market, which then was, the Nokias and all the Java phones. And I had familiarity with the whole area because of an aunt who had ALS, who was actually communicating just using her eyes. And basically we said, let's bring this to the mass market. Why is, it was out there for the military for years and in the medical. Let's try to bring this. And we said, what is going to be the mass market device? It's going to be mobile. So back then we looked and said, okay, we need a front-facing camera. There was only one device back then, which was the Nokia devices that had a front-facing camera. The iPhone 3 then didn't have it yet. And we started there. And there we really tried to create something, to try to bring these technologies. And at first, we tried to squeeze what was out there into the mobile, and the phone crashed after 3 seconds. At that point, we said, okay, we're going to have to start from zero, because the mobile environment is a totally different environment. Besides for not having a dedicated processor, having a weaker processor, having weak camera, usually these things have infrared, 2 cameras, very powerful cameras, a dedicated processor. Beyond that, it's also handheld. It's constantly shaking. When I was standing on stage there, my hand was shaking whether I wanted or not. The environment is constantly changing. You have lights coming from here, from there. Just open up your front-facing camera and look at the image. What happens when you just do that? The algorithms out there didn't work. We really had to start from scratch and build something new.
So tell us more about the challenges of actually marketing this to the mass market.
So I think the first challenge is in all these technologies is, going from lab to market, okay, from a technology perspective. Because, to show something in the lab is one thing, or to show something working, we always say, it always works best on the guy who's working on it. Okay, you're doing it, you say, oh, look, it works, now give it to me. To be able to reach a point where mobile environment, which is a crazy environment, works for mass market is a really big challenge. To be able to really work on all types of people, on all types of environment, and to do this all in a really, really small and powerful way is a big challenge. But when it goes to the market, we have a big advantage, because the minute we're just software, it changes the whole story, because distribution is, all you need is to integrate this. We have, hardware manufacturers, a lot of them, who are looking into putting this into their future devices. But we don't need that, in the sense that this can be installed into any app, and that's it. It goes out in the App Store, and no distribution problems. Any other device, you have to sell. You have to sell an actual device. You have to put it somewhere. It's a whole different story here.
So Doron, tell us more about, the challenges of utilizing a technology that is powered by nature.
Right. So anything that is biological, by definition, deteriorates and degrades. So our first challenge was to show that these are actually stable elements that can stand temperature of a mobile device and that can last for, let's say, 3 years of a use of a mobile phone. And what helped us a lot was the ability to create these crystals, because if it's a crystal, then it's much more stable and it doesn't oxidate, and it basically stays as is for a long time. So until like 300 degrees Celsius, we are very stable, and we also proved that it will last enough for a TV or for a smartphone continuous use. So the major challenge we already passed.
Nat, as an investor, would you invest in these companies? What do you see the challenges of the go-to-market for these two startups?
First of all, I must say that I was totally blown away by StoreDot and what I heard yesterday. We're talking about it and the implications of basically taking something very weak, like a disadvantage, something that is related to Alzheimer's, which means memory loss, and then actually turning that into something powerful for memory, which is like unbelievable. Obviously, this is in a controlled lab environment, and commercializing a live product, this is not software, this is material, live material, is probably very challenging. I think that one part will be being sufficiently funded and have a lot of leeway, because there's a lot of research and development back and forth. Obviously a long sales cycle to get maybe this implemented out there by the big companies, OEMs. And I think the same goes for YouMove, in the sense that on the one hand, it's software that can be downloaded into an application. Obviously, it's up to the user if the user will be using that or not. But by experience, I know that working, for instance, with telcos, handset manufacturers, OEMs, it's a very, very long process. You can work almost in a year to get implementation. You have to come in the right cycle, plan for the next year products. If you miss that window of opportunity, it might be delayed another year or so. That's a very long process, and for a startup, that can be life and death in terms of being around for the next couple of years or not. So it's always much more challenging bringing these things to the market. And obviously, it's new. It's fascinating, has a very strong wow factor, but the implementation and commercialization and actual use of it, it's a big challenge. But I think these are very, very exciting concepts.
So as you said before, the military has been responsible for a lot of the technological success that Israel has been experiencing. Do you think that will change? Do you think the private sector will drive it more now?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that the military is directly responsible, but I would say it's indirectly responsible in terms of, you have guys and girls together in units getting very domains. It's kind of like a university, applied university in specific domains. And once they kind of graduate, leave the army, they take that knowledge with them. And I think as long as we have an army as it looks today in Israel, that will continue and influence, and also being the kind of the glue that keeps people together and creates that tight group between the entrepreneurs and create that entrepreneurial spirit. So as long as we have it around, it will continue influencing. I don't think direct. I think eventually everybody graduates, they go to university, work maybe for bigger companies, and eventually start their own companies. So they're moving from to the civilian sector. So I don't see that changing anytime in the near future.
Okay, Doron, you talked a little bit about academia before. What do you think is the strong scientific foundation in Israel that enabled StoreDot to come to life?
So what's interesting about StoreDot is that it's not one discipline. So I have reporting to me about 15 PhDs. And when we sit around the table, each of them comes from a very different discipline. We have chemists, biochemists, organic chemists, physicists, electrical engineers, semiconductor experts, all PhDs, and of course all the two professors that are part of the founding team. And the thing that is interesting here is that the academic background of these people is so strong that they all bring new ideas that nobody have thought about this before. I mean, semiconductor, and I come from this world, has been the same for the last 20 years. Yes, it's been shrinking all the time, and we are getting into 15, 14, 12 nanometers today. But it's all about shrinking. The process has been the same. You always use the same harsh materials, the same etching, the same photolithography. Everything is the same. We are proposing something totally different, and in order to do that, you do need this strong background from the research and the academia world.
Yitzi, you mentioned before UMove's effect on the medical world. Can you discuss that a bit further?
Yeah, sure. One area I think which is clear to some people is really the disabilities. Okay, the ability, of course, if people have trouble using their hands, to be able to use in other ways. But when we talk about the eye tracking in the medical world, it's much bigger than that. Because, today, and there's been a lot of research about this, and, what does a neurologist do, usually? He doesn't open up your brain and look at it. He looks at your eyes. He asks you to look at this, look at that. He looks, a lot of different things in medical research have been dealing with eye tracking and eye movement, but the big problem was it wasn't accessible. You needed these very expensive, $50,000 devices. Most doctors didn't have it. You'd have to go to a special clinic. So it limited the use for diagnose and for treatment of research that's already been out there. By us bringing this and making it not just, at every doctor, but actually at every patient at home, it suddenly makes this whole world, it opens up a whole new world, and we see the excitement in the medical world. And every day, I'd say we have either a university or a doctor, something in the medical world contacting us saying, we have an amazing idea how this can change this field and this field. Because imagine, a patient sitting at home and the doctor just telling him on the phone, look at the screen, and he gets diagnosed based on watching. He shows him some images, shows him some things. And this is true for, you were talking about Alzheimer's, autism, ADHD. There's endless areas where the eye movement can tell you so much about the patient, if he's taking his medicine, if it's working, if it's not working. And there's a whole nother world of treatment where the user is asked to do certain things, to follow certain elements, and you can see and say it's working, it's not working, try harder. There's an endless world that can be affected by understanding and tracking the eyes, and really change the medical world entirely.
Okay, so, let's talk a little bit about the future. What can we expect from you guys in the future? What are you planning for the next quarter or year?
Okay, so first of all, we have, many, the games I've showed now, some of them are going to be going to the market soon. We have developers from all over the world who are starting to integrate already now, working on their games, integrating this technology in there. At the same time, we're working on more quality, I'd say more than just games and apps, in various different verticals, in research, in medical, in advertisement research, in eyewear, a lot of different areas that are building very unique products using our technology already today. So these things should begin to hit the market within 2014.
And Doron, same question?
So we have, we are a small startup, so we can't do everything. So we are focused on 2 prototypes, and we are working with the strategic partners on that. One is a display that will have the active layer replaced by our material instead of using cadmium selenide and heavy metals. And the other prototype is the next generation battery that, as I mentioned, would enable you to charge your smartphone very, very fast. And in each of them, we have already identified who we are working with, and these are also part of our strategic investors.
Okay, so we have about 2 minutes left. I want to ask you, what do you think is the real secret of the startup nation? What is the secret sauce?
I think it's all the things that we said together, but mostly it's the Israeli chutzpah. It's the ability to take something and say, we are going to change the world. So 20, 30 years, semiconductor has been done one way. We believe it can be done another. You need to rethink things from scratch, and typically people don't do that. Israelis are more, I would say, engaged in trying to change the world.
Okay, Yitzi?
Yeah, to connect to what he was saying, I think that most of the startups we see, they're usually sort of, they can be great ideas, but the basis, the technological basis of them is things that are out there. They reorganize them, make it into a new business model, a new app. And that's what we're seeing all the time. I think what you see coming out of Israel is very different. And it really has to do with what Doron was saying. I think there's no fear. There's the courage to really look at a problem. Most people, they say, look at a problem. Oh, but that's not how we're going to do that. Okay, let's look for a different problem. And you think of problems of things that are easy for you to achieve. I think an Israeli who sees a problem, and you know, people have dreams all the time. We all do. But most people, you know, if it's a crazy dream, they go back to sleep. Israelis say, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And you get up and you go do it. Why? Who are you? Maybe, you know, some can say it's arrogant. Who cares? It works. At the end of the day, there's many, many technological startups coming out of Israel because of this. They just get up and do it no matter what the challenge is.
Nat?
Yeah, I don't think I can add much to that. I think it's really about, you know, it's like, you know, if the problem is too big, it's like I said, who cares? It's like, I can do it. It's like, why me? So why not? This is who we are. It's like, why not? Every single person has the capability to change the world. And the question is if you have the courage to stand up and believe in yourself that you can actually do that. And I think that's, we have maybe an overdose of that sometimes.
All right, well, I want to thank you all for
Thank you.
the wonderful startups, and thank you for the panel, and thank you all for joining us.